The National Assembly is holding a debate to mark National Women's Day under the theme, Realising Women's Rights for an Equal Future. Let's cross live to Parliament for that.
Responsibility of everyone, women and men equally. The ANC has always been on the forefront of women's struggles by putting forward the vision of a non-sexist society, gender equality and women's empowerment through its policies and interventions. Political parties like DA and the Freedom Front Plus are proudly carrying the legacy of apartheid, the legacy of a white male leadership. The EFF, on the other hand, is a copycat party that tries to copy the gender parity policies of the ANC. The ANC government is driving a program of creating a society. The ANC government, I'm busy with serious issues here, you are wasting my time. The ANC government is driving a program of creating a society that is free from all forms of discrimination in accord with the Women's Charter. The ANC remains resolute and will continue to create equal opportunities for women, women empowerment initiatives by creating safe spaces for women. We are adamant in ensuring for radical socio-economic transformation aimed at ending oppression, poverty and inequalities. Women have also gained international recognition in our continent in eradicating gender inequalities, discrimination and injustices done to women. Through the Pan-African Women Organization, the POWER has played a significant role in mobilizing women of the continent. The organization is also recognized and acknowledged by the African Union, which recognizes women as leaders of society. Government has made strides towards women empowerment and emancipation. As a country, we have made gains in advancing women's rights, in broadening women's access to education, in provision of health care and social support to women, and in improving their participation in economy and decision-making. We continue to increase the levels of women empowerment and have made significant progress in the public sector. Since the adoption of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action in 1995, significant progress has been made. There has been a leading number of women currently even serving in Parliament, a significant number that has been made. We currently have 50% gender parity of women holding cabinet positions. There are progressive laws that protect women's rights, enshrined in our Constitution. The Bill of Rights that ensures that the rights of women are protected. The government ensures that social transformation agenda is part of continuing journey of social change through institutions such as the Commission on Gender Equality and the South African Human Rights Commission. The ANC-led government has made progress in the inclusion of women in all sectors of the economy. In his virtual address commemorating Women's Day, President Cyril Ramaphosa said that government has planned to ensure 40% of procurement of goods and services from government departments in sourcing from women-owned businesses, and also continues to support women-owned cooperatives through the Department of Small Development Initiatives, such as Small Enterprise Development Agency, the SEDA. The Department of Trade and Industries Women Empowerment Unit manages the South African Women Entrepreneurs Network, which help women overcome the obstacles that still experiences in business. The Triple BEE transactions analysis report for the year 2018-2019 showed that more funding has been made available to women, particularly black-owned women companies. The empowerment of women is critical for inclusive growth. It is therefore crucial to include women in all sectors of the economy. In the next 5 years, the Industrial Development Corporation is targeting 10 billion rand of own and partner funding for women empowerment business. The government understands that the empowerment of women is crucial and has enormous economic implications for economic growth. Now more than ever, women recognize the importance of lifting each other up to thrive in success. They also understand the growing need to empower one another to be brave in the face of fear. Today, women are CEOs, entrepreneurs, innovators, and their compassion allow them to be great leaders and to inspire the next generation to reach greater heights than ever before. Women continue to take center stage, and impeccable strides have been achieved towards gender equality. However, women in South Africa still face challenges such as gender-based violence, and it is up to us as a country to deal with the challenges that women face together. There is no equality without the equality of women. Nothing for women without women. There is no limit to what we as women can accomplish. Mam Nontsigelolo Albertina Sisulu once said, we need to reshape our own perception of how we view ourselves. We have to step up as women and take the lead. I thank you.
Re leboga mme Modise. Leloko le le latelang e tla ba leloko le le hlomphegilego mme Sharif.
Thank you, House Chairperson. My name is Nazli Sharif, and I am a feminist. Born in 1990 to a South African mother and a Mozambican father, a product of the new South Africa, I am a young woman raised in a single-parent household in Johannesburg, and the legacy of my ancestors that were enslaved, shackled, raped, and brought to South Africa and Mozambique respectively, often against their will. Generational trauma, Mr. President, runs deep through my veins, as it does with many women spanning centuries. The history of women across the globe and our current lived experience is riddled with pain and violence. At some level, at every age, women are subjugated and equality remains a far-fetched ideal we can't seem to grasp. Like many women for centuries, my first memory of assault that I can remember as a young girl was by a family member. I couldn't have been older than 7 years old when he touched me inappropriately. I remember when I was 12 years old, I menstruated for the first time. And with puberty, my body started taking shape and changing. I will never forget going to ShopRite with my mom and standing in the aisle. A man groped my bum and my thighs, and I felt dirty and disgusted at myself for a very long time. Imagine, Mr. President, a 12-year-old girl thinking it's her fault. I felt his hand on my body for months after the incident, even though I bathed and I scrubbed the area he had contaminated. This happens to many young girls every single day, Minister Mashabane, when they are violently touched without a thought of respect, dignity, and consent. The system cannot fail them as it failed so many of us. As I got older, I was in my final year at Wits University. And I remember going to the shop and getting catcalled from inside my car and followed to the shops, harassed. I was so terrified that I went to the cashier and answered the question simply out of fear. Deputy President, this happens to almost every single young woman walking to the shops to go buy bread or walking to school. This is not only my story. This is our lived experience. The fear of being raped is a fear many young girls and women live with. The trauma of being raped is carried by too many women, and the pain will be felt by many generations to come. But just like many other women, Mr. President, it doesn't stop there. The objectification of our bodies continue with us throughout our lives. It doesn't matter who you are. Simply being born a girl child means that your experience in this world is a violent one. I remember getting elected to Parliament, and immediately I was objectified by my fellow male MPs, grabbing my wrist, touching my hair, or moving past me and grabbing my waist because they need support. Even here in these corridors, as a young MP who happens to be a woman, I am not equal. Before we preach about equality, let us start by holding ourselves accountable. We cannot pretend to care on this podium and then perpetuate patriarchy outside. You cannot write speeches about the effects of GBVF when you do not unlearn toxic masculinity. My name is Nazli Sharif, and I am a feminist.
Thank you, Sharif.
House Chair.
Yes, Honorable Mazzoni.
House Chair, I rise on a point of order because I didn't want to interrupt my member while she was giving a very important speech on a very important topic. But perhaps the gentleman, and I use that term very liberally, sitting at the back, would like to know that the reason there is a hashtag men are trash is because people like him will make
Honorable
fun of the members
Mazzoni,
standing at the
Honorable
table when
Mazzoni,
the
I
member
hear you, but
is
that's not a
exposing
point of
herself
order.
and telling her story.
Honourable
and a man
member,
at the back shouts
thank
out,
you.
maybe DA men.
I hear you.
That over there is why
Honorable
men are
member,
trash.
Honorable member, I hear you, but that is not a point of order. Honorable members, can we respect this debate, all of us? I want to appeal to those at home. Please check that your mics are muted. I know maybe you haven't been to the chamber for a long time. Let us remind each honorable members, please. Honorable members, please, I beg you. This is a very important topic that you are dealing with. Honorable member, please. Can I ask the whips of these people to talk together?
He's actually now threatening me, so let's ask him what he wants to do.
Honorable member.
Do you want to take this outside? Is that what you're saying?
Honorable Mazzoni, switch off the mic. Switch off
On a
the
point of
mic.
order. On a point of order.
You will
Chair.
not speak to me.
Honorable Mazzoni,
Mazzoni, we
please switch
cannot-
off the
you will
mic.
not speak
No, but you
to
cannot
any
act
woman
like that.
ever again.
No, but you cannot.
Chair.
Leadership in here. We cannot act
Chairperson.
like that.
Honorable
Chair,
On a
Mazzoni.
point of order, Chair.
Chairperson, don't think you can do that to me.
Maganga, please take your seat. Please take your seat.
You're so used to speaking.
Honorable Mazzoni, please. The people who work with these things, I can't mute these mics in the house. Please help me. Honorable Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, let's ask both members of Parliament, honorable members, Honorable Kaya, Makata, and Honorable Mazzoni, to please respect this House. And when you have called a point of order, members must just adhere to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much again. Please let's respect this debate. That is not how we start a woman's debate. Honorable members, let's respect each other.
Intoxicated from COVID money.
Honorable Langa, I did not want your intervention in this. Please mute your mic. Nyabonga, I hope we continue well. Please, those people at home, mute your microphones because they disturb the speakers here. If your name comes twice, you will be removed without warning. Sebuledi se se latelang ke motlhomphegi Mamente.
All right. Kyk, ek was hulle 5 van van nog steeds 2 oor.
Honorable Van Dijk, Veronica, Kwala, Askis Mamente, please continue.
Thank you, Chair. I hope you are starting my time from
Yes,
zero.
it's still where it was. I'm very careful with that. Continue, ma.
Thank you very much. Chairperson, we're here once again to make hollow noise about our commitment to the emancipation of women in this country, as it has become tradition every August in this House. We've just witnessed how a man can undermine a woman right inside the chamber. Needless to remind you that Ministers Mashabane, Ngakula, Sisulu attended the AU in January 2016, which commemorated women's rights. This Parliament has ratified Maputo Protocol, which emanated from gross genital mutilation of women's genitals. And today, we talk about mutilation of women's wombs. Talking about a plight of women and the right of women to equality across the board has become a box-ticking exercise for the ruling elite, year in, year out. We come here to pontificate while the country is burning. As we speak now, the report on the Commission for Gender Equality, which investigated the sterilization of HIV-positive women against their wishes, is gathering dust, and many of the victims are still hoping to find closure that may never come. The CGE report made a number of recommendations, particularly to the Department of Health, cutting across a number of themes, including legislative reforms and for ensuring that the health professionals responsible for the forced sterilization of these women are made to account. Nothing to date. But this has fallen on deaf ears, as all are concerns of women in this country. As we pontificate here, by the end of this week, thousands of women would have been sexually harassed and sexually assaulted, beaten up by those they live and have fallen in love with. The department mustn't dare challenge this report on the basis of prescription, because human rights do not expire. The fact that a trusted hospital doctor coerced a woman to lose a life in order to gain a life through ARVs was to be sterilized can never be prescribed. By the end of this week, thousands of women would have been asked to perform sexual favors in order to make it in government offices, in creative arts industry, in police stations, and in universities. By the end of this week, thousands more women would have been raped by their partners, their fathers, and random men they meet on the streets. All this is happening because we have failed as legislatures here. And these women have been failed by the executive and the judiciary. Just today, Hlengiwe's perpetrators' bail hearing took a center stage, and there's nothing about the actual killing of an innocent woman. Perpetrators always get priority because they have rights. However, the victims in this country do not have rights. We need a change of plan. We need to decriminalize sex work now. We urgently need to have a standalone parliamentary committee that will provide oversight to issues of gender-based violence. This committee must be briefed on a monthly basis by SABC on reported cases of gender-based violence, and there are monthly plans for curbing this crisis. It must be briefed by the NPA on challenges encountered in prosecuting cases of this nature, and they must account on all unopposed bails granted to sexual offenders. Social development must also account to this committee on progress made with providing shelters for abused women and children. Further, we need far-reaching legislative reforms in this country to do away with bail for those charged with sexual offenses. The conservation in our judiciary must stop being about the rights of the perpetrators. It must be focused on the rights of the victims to gain justice. We will soon put pressure on the Portfolio Committee of Justice and Correctional Services to finalize the Domestic Violence Amendment Bill, the Criminal Matters Amendment Bill, and the Sexual Offences and Related Matters Amendment Bill. In the meantime, both the executive and parliament must pull their socks up. Establishing a committee to keep institutions of the state accountable will not need a legislative change. We cannot do this like we wait at home and we fiddle with our thumbs. The Speaker of the National Assembly and the Chairperson of the NCOP must ensure that the safety of women is taken care of through the Parliament. We are here today to plead with the chair of chairs in Parliament to make sure that a committee that's going to do oversight on GBV cases is established. Not a committee of women, not a committee of police, not a committee of justice, but a committee that identifies the cases and ensure that every monster is locked up in jail and kept away successfully in this country. We want to ensure that the police station have sexual offense units that are operative, that are empowered, that have got enough detectives to take care of the victims. Resources must be deployed to police stations. We must get psychologists in police stations to assist and comfort the victims in order to tell their stories without fear. We need to ensure that our courts are lenient towards are not lenient towards the accused. We need a new process to obtain interdicts and court orders of women. They must never be sent to go and find police to deliver court orders to the perpetrators. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mam Fengwa, isikhathi ngesakho mhlonishwa. Last warning, Honorable Langa. I'm going to ask ITC to remove you from the platform if you continue to do that. Honorable Mamkhengwa.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Honorable members, in the month of August, we are reminded of fearless strength of the mothers of our nation who march against injustice law and fought for the opportunity of women today. We honor these women who fought tirelessly to equal opportunity. However, Honorable House Chairperson, it is with great sadness that the celebration of women in 2020 rings hollow. In the light of recent gruesome murders of defenseless women in our country, we cannot sit here today and talk about generation equality while women in our country are being slaughtered like animals. Little more than a week ago, the fifth body of a woman was found in Mtwalume, KwaZulu-Natal, and a pregnant woman was brutally killed on the farm in Winnen early in July. Where is the rage? Where is the justice? How can we begin to talk about equality opportunity when the lives, dignity, and security of these women were so brutally destroyed? President Ramaphosa, in his address on Women's Day, emphasized that we can no longer, as a nation, ignore the defining crisis of women and children for protection, for help and justice. He, however, failed to mention that according to latest crime statistic, of which is 42,289 rapes were recorded in 2019-2020. Honorable members, this is an average of 116 rapes per day. Yes, Mr. President, we cannot ignore the cries of our women and children any longer. We also cannot ignore failure of the government to protect our women and children any longer. Our commitment to achieve of equality for women will all be vain if we do not stand up and call our government's failure to protect the women of our country. President was quickly to emphasize in the speech that the nation that progress has been made a reforming law to give greater protection. However, Mr. President, We are still waiting for the National Council of Gender-Based Violence and Femicide to custodize this plan to establish. How long must we wait? Honorable Speaker, Honorable Chairperson, financial independence of women and the achievement of generation equality are under denial, critical in reducing the vulnerable of women in our country. However, this raging pandemic of GBV requires urgent state intervention. We need visible policing and rural communities. We need increase the efficiency of policy services, and we need strong commitment for government to push for as an IFP. We cannot stand for this. In conclusion,
Siyathokoza Mamhlengwa, isikhathi sakho siphelile.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma. Akhbar lid breed. Dis u nou se tyd.
Thank you, Chairperson. Serena Williams said, "Every woman's success should be an inspiration to another. We're strongest when we cheer each other on." To me, this epitomizes what makes women different from men. This is also what I regard as our collective strongest characteristic, yet this is also our greatest failure. Ons moet mekaar as vrouens ondersteun. Ons moet daar wees vir mekaar, maar ons moet ook daarteen waag om so blind gestaar te wees teen die vooropgestelde idee dat almal teen ons is en slegs ons vir mekaar kan wees, dat ons vrouens wat ons skuldig maak aan wanbestuur en ander vergrype vir blindelings ondersteun. Hierdie is duidelik gesien gedurende hierdie afgelope week toe die 5+ se mosie van wantroue teen die burgemeester van Mangaung Metro, mevrou Ollie Lamlele, geslaag het en sy verwyder is. Opposisiepartye en selfs lede van die regerende party het op kommer oor haar vermoë om te bestuur uitgespreek. Maar wat doen die ANC Vroueliga? Hulle verwerp die verwydering en roep vir haar heraanstelling. Hierdie gedrag, so ook die van agbare Modise vroeër vandag, is nie tot voordeel van vroue nie. Dit is ook nie goed vir gelykheid van vroue nie. Hierdie gedrag sit vroue en ons strewe vir gelykheid net verder agteruit. I was very excited about this specific topic, particularly taking into account International Women's Day shared the same theme this year with the hashtag Each for Equal. It further speaks to the FF+'s mandate and belief that all people should be granted equal opportunities. This is, however, not what is currently the case in South Africa. South Africa is not focusing on an equal future because we are not focusing on equal opportunities for all. We are not focusing on true empowerment of our women and girls. Furthermore, we are not teaching our girls to be strong and independent and to work hard for what they want to achieve. We are teaching them to hide behind the gender gap and to demand equal outcomes and not equal opportunities. We should be teaching our girls to not look for a hero, but to be the hero she needs. We need to teach our girls that they should never doubt that they are valuable and powerful and deserving of every chance in the world. And then we need to go ahead and create these chances, these equal opportunities. I have always been a firm believer that a man does what he can, but a woman does what a man cannot. Gedurende hierdie COVID-19 pandemie is hierdie slagspreuk nogal korrek bewys en in die meeste lande waar vroue leiers was, is die pandemie uitstekend hanteer, behalwe in Suid-Afrika. Hier het ons vroue leiers teleurgestel. Ons vroue leiers het ons skuldig gemaak aan die afdwing van drakoniese onsinvolle regulasies wat die ekonomie meer skade gedoen het as wat die pandemie ooit sou kon doen. Is dit omdat ons vroue leiers van die regerende party, soos die in beheer van die ramptoestand, slegs kwota is? Want dis mos die ANC se resep, quotas en kaders. We expected better from our female leaders in the ruling party. You should have called for sanity and been better. Chairperson, I'm concluding. Being a woman does not exonerate you from responsibility. Being a woman does not exonerate you from accountability. Being a woman does not exonerate you from the consequences of your actions. Being a woman leader in South Africa means you need to lead by example. Quotas do not equate true equality. The ANC's quotas and gender affirmative action legislation and policies tell young girls that they are not good enough, that they are not equal, that they need laws and legislation to get a job or a bursary. But this is untrue. They are equal and they do not need quotas. They can be appointed on merit. Vandag doen ek 'n beroep op die ANC Vroueliga sowel as elke vrou in Suid-Afrika. Wees die vrou wat jy wil hê jou dogter moet wees en na opkyk. Voorsitter, ek dankie.
Dankie baie. Agbare lidsoekers. En die Hayes.
Honourable Chair, the ACDP in its private members' bill brought before this House in 2017 and signed into law in January 2020 contributed to labour law legislation that allows for women who suffered miscarriage or stillbirth or who served as a surrogate mother paid leave for a period of 10 days. This historic private members' bill brought by an opposition party was the first to succeed and underpins the ACDP stance on equal and shared parental responsibility, as the two allowed fathers 10 days paid leave, paternity leave, upon the birth of their child. It is an important distinction to make in a world where biblical principles or conservatism is seen as oppressive or marginalizing of women. The idea that the rights of women are only advanced where biblical values is undermined is not only flawed, but it is deeply destructive to the well-being of women. In a society where conservative or traditional values are discarded, the plight of women economically and socially is not enhanced, but deteriorates, as it is proven in South Africa of today. Women are forced by abandonment, homelessness, and generational poverty to shoulder burdens alone with little or no support. The mental and emotional impact of this is devastating in a country where mental health services is not easily accessible or at times available. Domestic workers, cleaners, and women at the low end of the pay scale without health benefits are forced to live with trauma brought on by sexual abuse, domestic violence, and emotional abandonment. The lived reality for most women living in a violent society calls for strategic interventions to support mental health at a community level and for urgent attention to address homelessness that leaves women vulnerable to exploitation. In the current economic and health crises, the ACDP calls on this House to push forward legislation such as the Special Needs Housing Policy that will support housing interventions for women escaping domestic abuse or suffering mental illness. The hard truth today, as we stand here in debate, is that 26 years after the advent of democracy, for many, many South African women, the new South Africa is a dream not yet realized, not for them and not for their children. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Soekers. Ilunga elihloniphekileko umhlonishwa uKwankwa.
House Chair, thank you very much for this opportunity. Issues of gender equality have been a priority for many years among many parts of the world, including South Africa. That obviously includes the fact that gender equality features prominently in lofty ideals and programs and goals such as the Millennium Development Goals and the New Sustainable Development Goals, as well as the Africa Agenda 2063. However, while much has been achieved over the past couple of years, over the last 2 decades, but one notices that in many parts of the continent, including South Africa, women still struggle to break the glass ceiling in order to be able to occupy leadership positions, whether in the public or private sectors. Yes, we must acknowledge some progress made in legislatures in South Africa, Rwanda, Seychelles, Senegal, which rank among the top countries in the world, outpacing some of the developed countries when it comes to participation of women in their representation in legislatures. But one must admit and acknowledge the fact that in many parts of this African continent, it is unheard of to have a parliamentarian that is female and a woman. And in many parts of the African continent, women representation in legislatures is still very, very low, and it's a matter that we must attend to. Coming back to South Africa, we know and understand that women still bear the brunt of economic hardships and gender-based violence, especially here in South Africa, where we're a country that is at war with its own women. What we see as a failure and a concern for us is the fact that the criminal justice system continues to fail women on a daily basis, where, as already indicated earlier, the system seems to sympathize more with the perpetrators than with the victims. All the systems and the institutional framework that has been put in place at this point in time seems to be failing the victims, or to be on the side of the perpetrators rather than of the victims. Many of the women continue to occupy or remain in the periphery of our economy, and it's something that we as a United Democratic Movement believes that we should do and attend to it with immediate effect. The UDM believes that gender-sensitive budgeting can be among the sharpest tools that can be used for the realization of women's rights for an equal future. COVID-19 has impacted the world of work in three ways, according to the International Labour Organization: the quantity of jobs available, the quality of work, outsized effects on the most vulnerable employees, namely women. There are ways we can address these three categories of COVID-induced disruptions in our view. One of the most effective and sustainable ways is by applying gender lens, that is, take economic data and gender disaggregate it, then use those findings to create sound policy decisions that are going to be able to empower our women so that we can be able to make decisive interventions in these socio-economic challenges in particular that face women and the girl child. We believe that by gender disaggregating the data... Thank you very much,
Honorable Kwankwa. Thank you.
Thank you.
Honorable August.
Chairperson, firstly, apologies for not putting on my video. I've got bad signal.
No problem. Continue.
Honorable Chair, every Women's Month we deliver eloquent speeches about how revolted we are by gender-based violence. For a month, we speak about gender-based inequality and our commitment to its eradication. We tick the box, and then we move on to talk about heritage. Regardless of the month, some of the realities South African girls and women face includes being exposed to sexual proposition and body shaming wherever they go, including on social media. Women will earn between 20 and 35% less than men for doing similar work. During a pandemic, there is more risk of a woman losing their job than men. And women who do more unpaid work at home, the cooking, cleaning, and care for the young and old, women do about 70% of this work. Chair, society rightly demands professional police investigations and the hardest possible sentences for perpetrators of gender-based violence. Bail is still being granted to abusers, rapists, and murderers with little to no real consequences to their actions. I remind this House, the President last year reiterated that the state should oppose bail for suspects charged with rape or murder. Gender education must be embedded throughout the school careers of our children. We need to address this form of education so we can build a society of adults who are cognizant of issues around discrimination, violence, and crime against women. Horror stories like the bodies of 5 murdered women discovered in the sugarcane fields of Mtswalume in KwaZulu-Natal requires a voice and action from all of us. You don't have to be black to fight racism. You don't have to be gay to fight homophobia. And you don't have to be a woman to fight gender inequality. Girls are aware of the system of patriarchy as they grow up. Even before they can talk, they become aware of gender roles and hierarchies. They become aware of the tones of respect and disrespect, honor and abuse. The role of men during this developmental phase is critical for the growth of girls who are empowered with self-belief and self-esteem. Good is proud to be led by a woman, and we are proud of the leadership women have shown during the pandemic in countries that they lead. As many say, but few put into practice, we need more women leaders. It begins with our attitudes at home. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable August. Honorable Sheikh Imam, you are the next speaker.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. Allow me to start off by paying tribute to some magnificent women, my late mum, sister, and also my former leader, VZ Magwaza Msidi. But also allow me, Chair, to pay tribute to the women on the front line, particularly our healthcare workers, and those in the retail sector and things that are going beyond the call of duty to serve us during this very difficult time in this pandemic. 26 years later in South Africa, only 7% of women hold executive director positions in the country. Women continue to face hurdles against cultural and patriarchal dominance, and African women, particularly, Chairperson, are doubly disadvantaged because of race and, of course, because of gender. Now, the question we need to ask, Chair, is that 51.2% of the citizens of this country are women. So then the question that we must ask is, why is it, despite the women being the majority, and of course they are very often called about to play a pivotal role in the success of political parties through their voting systems, why do women still need to plead and beg to be recognized and provided the equal status in society? Indeed, if anything, I think women should be holding a higher office than men in society if you look at the role that they play in society. Now, I must agree with the honourable member from the DA when she says that, yes, indeed, she's faced some mammoth challenges when she became a member of party, and yes, a member of parliament. And I think we need to ask ourselves that if it starts in parliament itself, in the highest legislative body in the country, then what do you expect on the ground? We are supposed to be the protectors and those that should be leading with the highest level of integrity. And if it happens here, and yes, sex for jobs is rife in the country. Why is it that when you are holding office or when you are in a powerful position, you can have mistresses, you can abuse your spouses, you don't pay maintenance as if you are above the law? If we talk about gender-based violence, Chair, let me reiterate that every perpetrator we're talking about, and I've said this before, is somebody's son. It started somewhere on the ground, and where did it go wrong? What I hear party after party talking about what you're going to do after people are raped and murdered. I think what we should be doing is, how do we prevent our women from being abused? How do we prevent them from being raped? How do we prevent them from being murdered? That is what we should be looking. Policies, committee meetings, and legislation is not going to change. We need behavioral change on the ground, societal change, the way we live our lives on the ground. If we're not going to change that, we're not going to have a better society for the future. So I think people need to understand one thing, Chair, that on the ground, and particularly parents, must be very observant. If a child is not able to respect his parent, he is certainly going to become a problem in society. So I think we need a societal change here to be able to bring a better society. And that includes the LGBTI community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Powell.
House Chairperson, on the 5th of September last year, our nation witnessed one of the largest, most powerful protest marches post-democratic South Africa has ever seen. More than 20,000 women gathered at the gates of this very precinct to tell our political leaders once and for all that enough is enough. Our bodies will no longer be the crime scenes of men. In the aftermath of that protest, our president gave the nation his firm commitment to addressing this problem with speed, force, and urgency. On the 5th of September last year, an average of 143 sexual offences were committed every day. Today, almost a year later, That daily average has climbed to 148. House Chairperson, I do not need to tell you, the situation is intolerable. In the last financial year alone, more than 53,000 women were victims of sexual assault. More than 42,000 women were raped. 63% of the top 30 worst police stations reported an increase in sexual offences. These are not just numbers. These are real women with beating hearts. 148 mothers, grandmothers, sisters, daughters who are bludgeoned, traumatized, and dehumanized by violent men every single day of the year, while Cabinet drags its feet in addressing the bloodbath that unfolds. Honourable members, the ANC must not come here today and again tell us that they have a plan. The women of this country are no longer interested in their platitudes and promises, in their timelines and cheap talk. For 26 years, you, the ANC, have failed to develop a comprehensive legislative agenda to deal with this crisis. For 26 years, you have failed to capacitate the state to deal decisively with the thousands of men who rob women of their dignity as a sport. For 26 years, you have failed to find a budget to abate the river of our women's blood flowing scarlet red through the towns and villages of this nation. House Chairperson, it took a mere 61 COVID-19 cases for the Honourable President to declare a national state of disaster, allowing a National Command Council to take executive control of the crisis. While the ANC was able to find 500 billion rand in this year's budget to deal with a medical pandemic, a mere 8 billion spread over 5 years has been found to deal with a pandemic of sexual violence claiming women's lives every single day. If every member in this House is not as exhausted as almost 30 million South African women are by now, then you're either not paying attention or you are part of the problem. To our ruling elite, I say, we need funding, state capacitation, and a comprehensive legislative agenda right now. We need police stations that actually have rape kits in stock. We need DNA kits readily available in clinics and in hospitals. We need to prioritize the provision of legal aid to victims of gender-based violence. We need the urgent introduction of an automated national registry for protection orders. And we need the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence to be adequately budgeted for by Treasury. In conclusion, House Chairperson, I say to the 30 million women of this nation who are exhausted and close to losing hope, do not despair. We see you, we hear you, and we will continue to fight for you. The death knell of violent patriarchy abounds, and it should be grateful that we want equality and not revenge.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is the Honourable Murolong. Honourable Murolong.
Well, thank you very much, House Chair. In 1981, on the occasion of the conference of the women's section of the ANC, President O.R. Tambo profoundly remarked that the mobilization of women is the task not only of women alone, or of men alone, but of all of us, men and comrades in the struggle. The critical lessons derived from the liberation struggle must inspire our resolve to act in unison in overcoming the challenges facing the women of our country, notably the scourge of gender-based violence and femicide, and patriarchal attitudes and behavior. The harsh reality is that South African society is deeply embedded in patriarchal practices and norms produced by a systematic history of colonial and apartheid oppression, which has crippled the development of African families in particular. The history of oppression has contributed immensely towards gender-based violence and femicide in this country. Patriarchy is a distinct system. It does not exist on its own. Its obliteration requires efforts of a society as a whole, because it exists and survives even under the most progressive political system. The ANC government understands that the manifestation of patriarchy in our society finds expression through economic, social, religious, and family relations. The reality is that the feminization of poverty, physical and psychological abuse are in stark contrast to the character of the National Democratic Society that the ANC has always espoused. The ANC has shown demonstrable efforts in creating socio-economic conditions that continue to enable women to realize their full potential. The African National Congress firmly believes that our quest to eradicate patriarchy relies heavily on the social ability to change its way of thinking and practice. We need to reconstruct a way of thinking about gender as a norm. Even more critical and urgent is the need to change how we socialize our children. We need to change gender norms. In September last year, President Ramaphosa announced the Emergency Response Action Plan, whose objective is to mobilize all sectors of society against gender-based violence and to guide the coordination of the national effort. Following this important announcement, government in collaboration with civil society have made significant progress in the fight towards violence against women, children, and persons of LGBTQI community. Honorable members, legislative process to deal with the outcomes of power relations and abuse are to be found in the Domestic Violence Amendment Bill, the Criminal Law Amendment Bill, and the Criminal and Related Matters Amendment Bill. The Department of Social Development has introduced the Victim Support Services Bill, which provides victim support services to victims of violent crimes. The bill also prohibits secondary victimization. The fight against all forms of gender oppression requires of men of virtue to step up and occupy their rightful place in the most noblest of battles, whose victory will inevitably herald a new era in which patriarchal practices and stereotypical attitudes are eradicated. This fight requires men to confront gender-based violence whenever it rears its ugly head. It requires of men to call each other out, because the silence of good men is tantamount to complicity. Raising children can never be a sole responsibility of women. We need to take our position in our communities and in our homes and become present parents in the upbringing of our children. More than ever before, we need to become better role models. We need to teach our girls about the value of being loved and appreciated. Gender stereotype socialization of girls and boys must be addressed to build social cohesion. The government will have to continue to build social compacts with civil society and the private sector to rid our country of gender oppression. We need to build a society in which our people will embrace the reality that violence is not an acceptable means to deal with conflict or differences. The economic participation and empowerment of women remain crucial in the eradication of the feminization of poverty. Gender pay parity gap still perpetuates marginalizations and deepens the inequality gap. Although government has made significant strides towards the advancement of gender equality, much more still needs to be done, particularly in the private sector. For the economy to thrive, there will be a greater need for the participation of women in all aspects of economic activity. We need to commend initiatives such as the South African Women in Construction, which continues to create pathways to empower women to gain access to business opportunities, training, finance, and networks in the construction industry. Technology for Women in Business, which is an initiative of the Department of Trade and Industry, was designed to empower women and facilitate focused action by female entrepreneurs at all levels. This program aims to make science and technology more accessible and to empower women in business, particularly those in small, medium, and micro enterprises. Government has also partnered with the private sector to finance women-owned cooperatives through funding such as Easy Fund, the Women's Fund. The Bavumile Skills Development is another such good initiative, which provides training to mostly rural-based women to improve the quality of their products and enable access to domestic and international markets. Earlier this year, President Ramaphosa launched the 1,000 businesses in 100 days, which was a commitment in the State of the Nation address. This initiative was a collaboration between the Department of Small Business and the National Youth Development Agency. This initiative resulted in more than 50% of its beneficiaries being young women entrepreneurs. On the occasion of the Women's Month, we bow our heads in honor of successive generations of women who paid the ultimate price so that we could enjoy the fruits of our hard-won democracy. We salute Comrade Ruth First, a decorated struggle activist who was one of the most instrumental figures in the March of Women in 1956. Comrade Ruth First was killed by a letter bomb in 1982 on the instruction of one Craig Williamson, a major of the South African police. We salute Mama Victoria Mtenge, a struggle icon, a health professional, and an outstanding human rights lawyer who devoted her entire life to the struggle against apartheid. In 1985, Mama Victoria would suffer the same fate as her husband, who was brutally killed by the Flag Plus agents in 1981. 4 years later, she'd be gunned down by agents of the security branch on a driveway in Umlazi in front of her children. We salute Nomkosi Mini, who was an ANC activist and an MK operative. She was brutally killed when she was shot by members of the Flag Plus hit squad when they raided 2 houses in Maseru in 1985, killing 10 children. Comrade Nomkosi Mini was a daughter of Comrade Vuislo Mini, who was executed by the apartheid regime in 1964. We salute Emma Satere, a young COSAS activist who was run over in a schoolyard by a police vehicle in 1984 in Atteridgeville. The student had peacefully gathered at DH Peta High School after COSAS had boycotted classes. In their desperation to disperse the crowds, the police opened fire. Emma died later at Kalafong Hospital. For the role that women have played in the struggle and for shaping our society, we owe you a debt that can never be repaid. And we are reminded of the sacrifices made by women so that everyone today can enjoy the benefits of our hard-fought democracy. I thank you.
Thank you, Mtate Morolong. Mhlonishwa Nchaiso.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. I'm not going to ask that question, after which I was given a new name. Chairperson, we shall always salute the women of 1956 who were bold enough to confront the shackles of apartheid and march to the then center of apartheid, Pretoria. They were sick and tired of the apartheid regime. Their contribution cannot be forgotten. They contributed a lot to the struggle for this country. It is not only enough to celebrate the 9th of August, but to celebrate our women for 365 days plus 1. For this reason, women should be empowered and developed more than before to prepare them for the generation equality or an equal future. In fact, they have got all the rights to be on the same footing as men in terms of power and development. Patriarchy has long been showing itself from time immemorial. Now it is time that it comes to an end. Women should be active and get involved in the sector of technology, which is the way to go these days. The 4th Industrial Revolution, Chairperson, has got all the opportunities for women to get into the space. Fortunately, for the African women and South African in particular, the beginning has just come. Therefore, the Chairperson, showcase. Without women, there is no nation. We believe that women are part of They should therefore be given that opportunity to show who they are. Technology can also assist in fighting gender-based violence and the killing of our children. Women must be allowed to lead. The talent in women is in abundance. It has to be used. We really don't have any reason why women cannot be on the same footing with men. This should not sound as rhetoric, but should be practical. We also urge them to have confidence in themselves and not allow these challenges to cripple their development. If, Honorable Chairperson, it was possible for them to contribute to the political freedom in 1956, they can do the same to contribute to the economy of this country and also to the social development and the spiritual lifting. Perhaps this corruption can also come to an end. I thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson.
Siyabulela babunja isakhamlaude upasile, no more asking questions. Babunyonzo.
Thank you.
House Chairperson, above and beyond the delivery of petitions by the Women's League of Affiliates of the so-called Congress Alliance on 9 August 1956, African women have contributed immensely in pushing for the change and transformation in our country's history. Let me raise a few names. Mama Zondeni Veronica Mate Sobukwe, Mama Elizabeth Sibeko, Mama Nomvo Boy, Mama Boniswa Ngana, Mama Beleta Mazwai. The list is endless. These various generations of women are little understood because they are seen but not heard. They have kept themselves off the limelight because their suffering, their sacrifice, and their service to the people is a lasting footprint for the cause of the people. We must pay attention and learn from them. We have seen the rise of women in power in our time. It is the only return to a toxic atmosphere of the reactionary past that has kept young women from flourishing and occupying positions of leadership in society. A terrible backlash is the ugly rise of gender-based violence. Those who study these incidents profile young men who are feeling besieged by the competitive spirit of women. They are said to be weak-willed and unable to find a place for themselves in the new environment where human rights and the rights of women are upheld. They resort to the use of violence. This is completely unacceptable. The PAC condemns gender-based violence with the contempt it deserves. We stand for the emancipation of African womanhood. To educate and empower women is to eradicate and empower a village. Real efforts should be made to reform the education system so that the young men and women should be taken to the sixth form of a finishing school, if you like, to make gender sensitivity and awareness a strong and living feature of the ways of behavior in society. The PAC believes an intergenerational ongoing education for young people, including the old, who are not liberated from reactionary behavior, should be unfolded to curb the sickening growth of gender-based violence. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Nyonso. Mhlonishwa Hendricks.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, Valerie Truter, a young woman, showed her bravery when she picked up parts of a 15-year-old high school student brother's brains that was blasted out during the 1976 riots on the Cape Flats. Young learners' lives did not matter. Al-Jamaa applauds her as one of the many unsung heroes on the Cape Flats. She still lives in the same house in Bonteheuwel, and her niece Carmelita is taking the baton to honor youth that were killed in 1976 and the young girls that took part in the riots, and also Zolili Moshi, who was the second person to be killed. Women can be depended on to continue the struggle. Women on the Cape Flats must take up the baton to get freedom for women on the Cape Flats, which still remains a Cinderella when it comes to gender rights and be free from abuse. It was sad to hear that the official opposition party sexually harassed their members, and we call on all political parties not to do so. The crocodile tears said in this parliament about gender-based violence is becoming irritating, House Chair. It is all thunder but no lightning. It is a year now, and the policy to register shelters for abused women has not been completed. The minimum standards for these shelters has not been established. The funding to ensure the minimum standards are implemented are nowhere in our budgets. Shelters for abused women, especially on the Cape Flats, is urgently needed. Non-negotiable, President Ramaphosa cracked the whip. Women's dignity is non-negotiable, he ruled. This should be a leap for generational equality, ignored by our ministers. Women in religious marriages, when she completes official documents, has to answer unmarried and answer that the children are illegitimate. How insulting. Why does this government like to insult women? How can one attack the dignity of women? When they get an official document like a death certificate, there's an insulting entry, never married. Why not just say widow or married according to Jewish rights or Hindu rights or Muslim rights? Now that the president has ruled women's dignity is non-negotiable, let's hope his order is not all thunder and no lightning. Don't fight for generational unity of South African women, but get all the women of Africa to unite and put up a continental fight, then every woman's voice on the continent will count. It is the daughters who cry out for their fathers. It is the wives who cry out for their husbands. It is the women who take the first bullets in the trenches. The women are the first to offer themselves for arrest. Islam says heaven lies under the feet of your mother. You have already completed half your faith unless a wife comes into your life. Islam has honored and given women more rights than men because women are so special. Each woman on the virtual platform and the House should have been honored at least with a rose, Honorable Chair. Al-Jamar sends a virtual rose to all women.
Thank you. Umhlonishwa Mam Kanyile?
We don't want roses here. Men must take off the hands of women. We don't want
Honorable
roses.
Ntlangwini, you are not part of the speakers on my list. Please. Continue, Mam Kanye.
House Chair, today I stand here to raise my voice alongside the women of this country. I raise it together with my fellow sisters across political parties today in this parliament because our voices matter. I raise it for our little girls at home, for the women who continue despite it all, for the women who could not continue. This is for all women. House Chair, I was born in the dusty streets of Sakile, located in Ligwa local municipality in Mpumalanga. Born to a mother with a hearing and speech impairment, I spent my childhood watching my mother being denied an opportunity to go to school, to work, to make her own choices. 26 years into democracy, many women in our country find themselves trapped in a similar situation to my mother's, where women of South Africa are not only murdered, but are denied an opportunity to be included in the economy. 26 years into democracy, when my mother visits a hospital, a clinic, or South African police service, she won't find a sign language interpreter. As women of this country, we have begged in front of the door of this government. We have cried in front of the door of this government. We are dying in front of the door of this government. Our lives have simply been turned into slogans. Sikhathele ukumemeza sithi wathinta abafazi wathinta imbokodo. Kuyoze kube nini sikhala? Sifa, sibulawa. The government has turned a blind eye to the criminality we face. South Africa should be considered a failed state if it cannot protect the women of this country. House Chair, let me draw your attention to farm mothers. I am saddened that President Ramaphosa said in New York there are no farm mothers in South Africa, when in fact, just in a few cases, in 2014, the Muller family was attacked on their farm near Nelspruit, and the woman was raped twice by the gang members. In 2019, in another attack in Elizabeth, a woman was raped.
Honorable Kanyile, please wait. Honorable Gisela Opperman has a belief. You are not aware that you have not muted, you are laughing, you're disturbing the house that is in session. Please mute. Continue, Honorable Kanyile.
House Chair, let me draw your attention to farm matters. I am saddened that President Ramaphosa said in New York there are no farm matters in South Africa, when in fact, just to mention a few cases, in 2014, the Muller family was attacked on their farm near Nelspruit and the woman was raped twice by gang members. In 2019, in another attack in Port Elizabeth, a woman was raped in full view of her 12-year-old daughter, and the government again turned a blind eye. The pandemic has also exposed the ANC for who they truly are. A party that can deplete 500 billion rands within 3 months by awarding tenders to its cadres, while forgetting about child-headed households and the women of this country. The ANC must be told that while they were enriching their friends and families, it was the women and children of this country who were affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Others had to endure long, cold nights on empty stomachs, waiting for food parcels, which were also allegedly delivered to the homes of ANC cadres. House Chair, we need to be individuals who selflessly dedicate their voices, their time, their hearts into helping South Africa see that we are seriously endangering our future, which is our children. I thank you.
Thank you. Honorable members, if you must reduce your voice, please.
House Chair?
Yes, Honorable Mazoni?
House Chair, I rise on a point, it's a privilege and clarification to inform the House that it is also my pleasure during this Women's Day debate to announce that the Honourable Angel Kanyile won the I Am Woman, I Have Purpose 3rd Annual Woman of the Year Award for 2020 this year.
Thank you. Congratulations, Honourable Kanyile. As we continue now and invite the Honourable, the Minister of Agriculture, Rural Development and Land Reform, Umamutogo Didiza Gamsana. Ikube mama, wivale.
Bendlu yesishamthetho ongqongqoshe kanye namasekela abo abakhona kule ndlu, amalunga ahloniphekile nomphakathi wase kubalekile asiqala ukukhuluma namhlanje sizithobe sibhekisa amakhanda phansi ukukhumbula labo abasishile ngodlame kanye nalabo futhi abasishile ngokudlula ngale COVID ehlasele wonke umhlaba jikelele. Uma sikhumbula labo besifazane ababayizingqalabutho zokulwela amalungelo besifazane nokulwela isizwe, kubalekile futhi ukuthi sikhuthaze kumbe futhi sibheke abesifazane bakulelizwe abasenze sabaseqophelweni eliphezulu ngezinto abazenzile khona manje ekubhekeni nalesifo se-COVID-19. I want to honor today the generation that has made interventions and innovations in resolving the current health challenges in our country. Dr. Amanda Skepu at Mintech for the development of point-of-care diagnostic. Professor Marita Kotze in Stellenbosch also for developing a mechanization for diagnostic. Also the vaccine research team, which is led by Dr. Helen Rees and Glenda Gray. So as we pass the baton to those who are coming, we remember and learn from those who have gone before us. Isisho sesiZulu sithi, indlela ibuzwa kwabaphambili. Victoria Mbezi has this to say about this African proverb, I quote, "Personally, the proverb means so much to me because it has taught me humility. It takes humility to recognize and acknowledge that there is always someone out there who knows and does something better than I. Therefore, I need to learn one or two from them. Not only, but also respect for elders, whether biological or non-biological. They are a critical part of one's family. Also has the homework to do. Indlela ibuzwa kwabaphambili. Uma sibheka
Chubeka mama. Ubaba umpunza siyacela bakumutile kwa ICT. Check your gadget. Siyaxolisa mama Titiza chubeka mama.
Ngikusho lokhu ngoba ngithi mangibonge kuzikhulumi ezikhulumile namhlanje kule debate yomama, ikakhulukazi uma sibona igalelo libekwe ngumama uModise nobaba uKenny Morolong lapho besinikeza khona umlando wegalelo labesifazane, kanti futhi nokuthi lo uhulumeni esawukhetha ngo1994 usuhambe wafika phi ukushintsha isimo, kanti ke futhi abafihlanga ukuthi kusekhona izinto ekufanele sizenze ukuya phambili. Ngibonge ilunga uNazil Sharif naye obeke izinto ezibalekile ikakhulukazi ukuthi sibhekana kanjani phecelezi ne-toxic masculinity ekufanele sizame ukuthi ikakhulukazi ezimfundisweni zethu sikhulisa abesilisa sikwazi ukubhekana nabo. Ngiphinde ngibonge umama uMente ngalokho akubalulile naye okufanele ngempela sikubambe kube semqoka njengohulumeni izinto okufanele siqhubeke sibhekane nazo, ikakhulukazi uma ebeka le report eye-Gender Commission mayelana nalabo bantu abaphoqa ukuthi bavale izizalo zabo, kanye futhi nokuthi siqhubeke nokuthi ema-police station ethu sibe nethimba labantu abanobucwaningo obuningi ukuze kuthi abesifazane abayobika amacala abo okuhlukunyezwa babe nokuthola ukwamukela, kanye futhi nomama uhlengwa naye akubekile. Bese ngisho-ke ukuthi angizuphendula kukho konke okushiwo ngoba okunye bekuyizincomo zezinto okufanele sizenze siwuhulumeni, siyilendlu yesishayamthetho, kanti futhi umphakathi wonkana. Indlela ke ibuzwa kwabaphambili. Uma sibheke emuva sikhumbula izishoshovu ezifana nomama uLydia Komape noBeauty Mkhize abahola umzabalazo wokulwa nokususwa kwabantu ezindaweni zabo. Bekwenze lokhu babehlukunyezwa imithetho yencindezelo yangaphambili. Bathi uma bebuzwa ukuthi yini lebenze ukuthi babe izishoshovu zalomzabalazo, bathi phecelezi ngolika George, their struggles were about the land, about dignity and the quest for freedom, freedom that recognized that men and women form part of a democratic South Africa as equals. The land issue in this context of this debate today is very important, Madam Chair. We cannot speak about building a non-sexist society when women's economic emancipation has not been realized. It is upon this generation of legislators and the executive to ensure that women's equal access to land is achieved. Madam Chairperson, Gender Links, an NGO, in its publication had this to say about the importance of land in changing women's economic position in society. I quote, "Land is a vital resource for rural and urban livelihoods in Africa. It is also a critical asset in boosting the economy of African countries that largely depend on agriculture, wildlife, tourism, and mining," close quote. The land is also central to women's quest for rights. Because of the engendered division of labor, women spend a lot of time working on the land and yet have limited rights of ownership, access, and control. Studies from the World Bank estimate that women's share of labor in Africa's crop production is at an average of 40% with variations across countries, close quote. Therefore, the exclusion of women from land ownership who clearly work the land denies them the social, economic, and political autonomy that is vital for full membership in a given society. Land represents the vehicle through which women can move from the reproductive realm of the productive economy to that which is productive in society. Therefore, women's rights to land are critical in the quest to create a more egalitarian society in Africa. I trust, Madam Chairperson, that this legislature, the National Assembly and our NCOP will do all that is possible to ensure that the work that is being done by the ad hoc committee on Section 25 will ensure that women realize this objective of being owners of their own land. Indlela ibuzwa kwabaphambili. Namhla masibheka iqhaza labesimame kwezombangazwe kakhulu esingakufunda umaqhinga nobuhlakani ngendlela ababelusana ngayo nobandlululo. Uma sibheka kusukela ekubekweni komthetho wokuphucwa kwabantu umhlaba owaziwa ngelithi yi-1913 Native Land Act, omama ababeholwa ngabanye osaziwayo emasontweni nakwezombangazwe omama Charlotte Maxeke baba nemibhikisho belwisana nalomthetho. Omama base-Orange Free State balwisana nomthetho wokuphathwa kwamapasi ikakhulukazi ngabesifazane. Kwakungomama banesibindi sokulwisana nanoma isiphi isimo esiphazamisa impilo yabo namalungelo abo emvelo. Esikufundayo-ke yindlela yokusebenza kwabo. Babegqugquzela amakhosikazi ngale kokucwasana ukuthi ngabe omunye wayekuliphi iqembu lombangazwe, inkolo, umnotho, nanokuthi wayendele kusiphi isiqumama. Okwakubalekele kubo kwakuwukulwa nengcindezi yangaleso sikhathi. Omama bangaleya minyaka babegqugquzela kanye nalabo besifazana abancane namantombazane ukuze ulwazi nenhloso yomshikashika ababhekene nawo ungashabalali. Namuhla yilokhu esikubiza ngesilungu sithi phecelezi intergenerational. Amakhosikazi lawa ayagqugquzela engakhethe buhlanga ngoba phela ingcindezi yowesifazane ayikhethebala kumbe ulimi oluthile. Laba besifazane babazi kahle kamhlophe ukuthi yize bebecindezelwe ngobulili futhi becindezelwe ngokwebala babecindezelwe futhi nangobuzwe. Yingakho babamba iqhaza emzabalazweni wokulwela inkululeko kawonkewonke. Le ndlela yokusebenza siyibonile komama ngeminyaka yo-1954 lapho besungula inhlangano ye-Federation of South African Women. Le nhlangano okuyiyona eyenza umqulu wokuqala obizwa ngesilungu i-Women's Charter ngo-1954 ebeka ngokusobala izimfuno zamakhosikazi alelizwe. Njoba ngithi indlela ibuzwa kwabaphambili, sibonile-ke ukuthi le Women's Charter yaba nomthelelo kulawo magalelo abantu abathanda ukuhlala kahle eNingizimu Afrika nabathanda ukuthula nenkululeko ababhala umqulu we-Freedom Charter befundeke kule charter yabesifazane. Kanjalo futhi nango-1963 uma kubekwa inhlangano yezwekazi lase-Afrika yayilandela ukwesekwa kwenhlangano yomama i-Pan-African Women Organization ngo-1962. Ngaleyo ndlela indlela ibuzwa kwabaphambili. Our reflections on the historical March of 1956 allows us to review how far we've gone in realizing women's rights for an equal future, a future that the Federation of South African Women dreamt of in 1954. Madam Speaker, today's debate also offers us an opportunity to look at the commitments we made in 1995 at the Women's Conference in Beijing. Our 25-year review of women's empowerment and gender equality in South Africa gives us an objective assessment of areas where we've made progress and those in which we have not done so well. I would recommend that as members of this legislature, we read this report and be able to use it as one of our resources as we do our oversight work on the executive. There are a few of these areas that I wish to highlight as examples for the debate today, and these are: on entrenching South Africa's vision and mandate for gender equality, we have made progress. I'm sure all of us seated here, there is no doubt that every woman in South Africa knows our quest to attain a non-sexist society, which is firmly anchored on the principle of equality that is in our Constitution. a clause that was fought for by women in the early 1990s during our negotiation process, united in one voice from various political parties, various strands in our society. On the formulation of policies and legislation that are gender responsive, we can say we've made progress, as this has been made reference to by some of the colleagues who spoke in this debate. We all agree, however, that though there might be legislation, what is important for all of us, not only just for the executive, it's how we actually ensure that these legislation become a reality in the lives of all women of our country. We can today say, when you look at our family law that relates to marriage, types of families, maintenance, and others, we have indeed made progress. On women's representation at the political leadership in the executive, legislature, including at government level, we've done very well. This, although we have not yet reached parity in terms of the legislature, I must say, honorable members, I'm really heartened this time that the other parties that have been in parliament since 1994, today they have women in their benches as it was not be in the years past. That indicates the progress that we have made, all of us as a country. Promoting women's economic emancipation, our progress has actually been moderate, not as we would all have liked. Women's representation in the leadership of corporates and private sector, again, this is another area where there has been limited progress. In the area of gender-based violence, despite legislation and policies, the challenge remains. I'm not going to deal with this in detail because majority of members in the debate have canvassed it as much. But I want to say, honorable members, yebo alikho isoka elingenasici. Uhulumeni wethu nezinhlaka zakhe uyazama, kodwa nathi siyimphakathi kumele sizame, nathi siyilendlu yesishayamthetho kumele sithi uma sibheka le mithetho esiyakhayo sibheke ukuthi ngabe izokwazi yini ukuba negalelo lelo esilifisayo. Kodwa nathi singabazali sibakhulisa kanjani abantwana bethu emakhaya ukuze bakhule babe nezimilo, bahloniphane, bazihloniphe kwabona, bangenzi ubudlobongela obuyokwenza ukuthi amakhaya abo nemiphakathi yabo itheleke ngehlazo ngezenzo zabo. Ngokusho njalo ngisho ukuthi umshikashika wokulwisana nodlamela besimame njengoba eshilo ubaba uMorolong akusilo uxanduva lukahulumeni kuphela kumbe yendlu yesishayamthetho kuphela kodwa ngolwethu sonke singumphakathi waseningizimu Afrika wase-Afrika nakuzwe lonke jikelele ngoba siyibonile imibhikisho eminye emazweni angaphesheya ukuthi le nkinga esibhekene nayo akusiyo inkinga yethu kuphela inkinga yomhlaba jikelele. It is in these areas and many others not mentioned today where we need to continue as this generation to fight for the improvement of the conditions and status of women and girls in our society. As government, following the review of the Beijing Platform of Action by the UN Women, we joined a coalition of countries that are prepared to continue advancing those ideals that women articulated in the 1995 Beijing Platform of Action. One of the issues that as a country and the chair of the African Union, we committed to lead relates to economic justice for women. This focus area by South Africa is very important as it coincides with the process of implementing the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Women are no strangers to cross-border trade in the African continent. A study done last year noted more inter-African trade is done by women through informal economic activity that is not accounted for. I thank you, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable members for listening.
Thank you very much. And as we conclude the debate, we want to wish all the women of this country good health and safety at all times. Thank you very much. The deputy, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable House Chairperson. The last item on the order paper is a debate on an urgent matter of national public importance in terms of Rule 130 in the name of Mr. N.F. Shivambo on solidarity with the hashtag Black Lives Matter, reinforcing the commitment of all South Africans to confront and defeat individual and institutional racism in our society and everywhere else it exists. I now recognize Honorable N.F. Shivambo from the virtual platform, but before he starts, let me inform the House that they have made an internal arrangement with Honorable Mautwe, that Honorable Mautwe will take the number of minutes left from what Honorable Shivambo will use in his remarks. So if he seems and appears to be exceeding the 8 minutes allocated, it will be...
All right, that's the National Assembly debate this afternoon, forming part of Women's Month commemorations. The topic, realizing women's rights for an unequal future. Would have heard there Toko Titiza talking about the progress made in gender equality in South Africa. All right, we're going to take a short break.